You gonna start? You're good. All right, so the 2014 paper 1, you've got the mark scheme for it, and so we're going to kind of talk through how they're graded. Now, paper 1s have workspace and they have answer space. I am recording. I know. On a paper 1, the examiner, the grader, will start by looking at your answer places. If they're all correct, each one of these is worth 6 points. They mark 6 points correct, and they go on to the next one. What do you think they're going to do if one of them's wrong? Look at your work for partial credit. That's how paper 1 works. So when we're looking through the mark scheme, this is how the marks are labeled. M stands for method. A stands for answer. C is correct. Doesn't matter whether work is shown. So you'll see a lot of times they'll say C2. So if they've shown the right answer, you get the 2 points and we keep moving on. If you see a mark labeled R, that's for reasoning. That's when you have to justify an answer. And then FT stands for follow through. So it says here, if a candidate has full marks on a question, C6, and they move on. Does that make sense? Okay. So in this paper, if the correct answer is seen, there's no need to check the work. You just move on. If the answer is wrong, then they look back at the mark scheme to see where they can give partial credit. I'm not going to read this whole thing to you because it's not worth it. But it does talk about rounding. Remember, what is their preferred rounding?
3 significant?
3 significant figures. Is it okay to do more?
Yeah.
Yes. So, like, this is on page 7. So they say the answer is 9.43, and in parentheses they have 9.43398. What do you think that is?
The full answer.
That's what you would get in the calculator.
Yeah.
So, if they see that in the working box, and then anything else correctly rounded, you can still get the point. But if you just put 9.4, no.
Yeah.
9. No, 9.3, definitely not. 9.4 is rounded wrong. So I suggest minimum 3 significant figures. Better to do more if you're unsure. But don't round wrong. Okay, so for this test, it actually starts on page 12 for the mark schemes. Now, as we're going through this, I also have a lovely thing called a subject report. After they finish grading all of the exams, what happens is some of the exams get selected to be reviewed by this committee. They look at them and look at who's got 80 points out of 90, who got 70 points out of 90, and they look at their work and they really analyze it, which is kind of neat, because it's not set as 70% is passing. So for this particular year, after they looked at all the papers, they decided up the mark range. So if a student got between 0, hopefully not 0 points, 0 and 13 points, they only got a 1. 70 to 90 points.
That's a huge range.
Is 7. 6 is 58 to 69. 5. Now remember, 4 is like the basic passing. 35 points out of 90.
Less than half.
That's less than half correct. You can do that. You don't get marked wrong. Like if you it's gaining points. Think about it as collecting as many points as you can. One of the things I highly suggest is you will get, I believe it's 5 minutes, without your pen, I'm sorry, it's a pen on this paper, to look through your paper. You know how I told y'all to go through and go, ooh, I know that one, check. In your mind, as you flip through the paper, maybe you flip through and go, oh, that's calculator, that's just calculator.
Yeah.
I can do that one. Flip to the next one. Mean, median, mode. Oh, truth table.
That's easy.
And then maybe I get to this one and go, okay, squared. So when I start working on my test, I already know I'm going to skip that one and come back to it later. Get the ones you know first, because you want to collect all the points you can that you're sure of first, and then go back. And then maybe this one you only get halfway down. But you want to actually try to get the ones you know first. Does that make sense on test-taking strategies?
Yeah.
Because you're collecting points. Now, one of the other things they give us after the test is things that were common mistakes. On this test in 2014, the common areas of mistake were rounding. Determining if two lines are perpendicular. How do you know if two lines are perpendicular?
They make a 90 degree.
Okay, 90 angle. What about their slopes?
They're opposite.
They're opposite?
Well, I mean, they're flipped and the sign is split.
Okay,
Their slopes are intersect.
so it's negative reciprocal. The sign changes and you have the reciprocal. A lot of people mess that up. So that is a frequently missed thing. The next one says equation of the normal. Normal was a perpendicular line. So does it make sense that both of those were missed?
Yeah.
Exponential models, finding asymptotes, compound interest, which you can do in the calculator, but maybe people forgot how. Complex logic problems. Those are the logic tables, the truth tables. I don't know why some people had problems. Then they give us areas where most candidates did well, and then it actually breaks down each problem with the common mistakes. I do want to hit all of the ones that y'all have up there, but I'm actually going to start with number 1, because I wanted to talk about a couple of things on here about calculator use. On number 1, part A is worth 2 points. So if you write down the correct answer, you get 2 points, right? If it's wrong and you show nothing else, do you get any points? No. So what could be something I put down for method? Show where you're plugging in the X, Y, and Z. So if I'm collecting points, I'm going to do everything I can to get points. So in my working box, that's where I'm going to show what I'm plugging in. So it says P equals 2 cosine 45 minus tangent of X, which is 45, over square root of 8192 minus 64. So if I accidentally put it in the calculator wrong, I could still get a point for that. Now, a lot of people actually have trouble putting it in the calculator. What's the best way to put something like that in the calculator? First, what mode should we be in? Degrees. I'm gonna have the calculator set up for you, but also I will come in and say, make sure you keep it in degrees. I'll run in before the test. Make sure you're in degrees. Now, one thing nice is if you accidentally have it in radians, and they notice it on the first problem, they'll count off that one time, but then they're going to rework the problems in radians for the rest. You won't lose another point later. So, make sure you're in degrees. Yep. So if they realize that they're not going to count off every single problem, for that. If they did all the other steps correctly. All right. So how do I put this in the calculator? Okay, I'll show you one way some people do it. Some people will type it in like this. What have I done wrong? Right, so it's only dividing tangent. That's not right at all. Or, if you go to alpha F1, remember, that'll actually give you the fraction, where you can type it in just like you see it. Now, you could use parentheses, but a lot of people make mistakes there as well. So what about this? What's there?
So 45 does not have a closed parenthesis.
Have to have a closed parentheses. So this is really testing to see if you can properly use your calculator or not. In the denominator, I have square root of 8192 minus 64. Oh, see, that was a common mistake. They said a lot of people put 8192 minus 64. They forgot about getting out of that radical. So you want to make sure that you only have what's supposed to be under the square root symbol, under the square root symbol. There's so many ways you could mess up putting it in the calculator, and if you don't show this step, you don't get any points for this part. So I got 0.015625. So shall I write 0.02 in my slot?
Wow, why?
Oh wait, it said to write down your entire calculator display. If you do not write it down, you do not get the point for that because it specifically said write down the entire display. Now, all the other parts can be followed through. So if you did mess up in the calculator, but do the rest of it correctly, you can get the rest of the points still. And I can tell that because if I look at the mark scheme, where's my mark scheme? Here it is. You'll notice on the mark scheme, it shows putting in the numbers, and it says M1. That's a method point. 0.015625 is the answer point. If the grader sees that, they give C2 automatically. It also shows some other options that they will accept. 0.0156. Why are they not accepting that?
Wait, what?
0.0156.
For which one? Oh.
It says if they don't show any work, you don't accept it at all. It gets M0, A0. What if they should shown that? They still get the 1 point for this if they show it. They give the answer, what if somebody put it in radians? If they made this mistake, this is going to be their answer. Now, on all the other ones, on Part B, it has this little FT on it, which means that you can, if you use your wrong answer correctly, you get your points. BI, correct to 2 decimal places. So 2 decimal places is different than 2 significant figures. And they are okay with, like I write mine 0.02, you could write it 0.02, they're fine with either way. I should also show you this. They even instruct the graders, like me, on the different notations, especially if you're have an international paper coming to you. Like 1.7 in certain countries, they do their decimal points as a 1 upper dash, 1-7, 1,7. Some countries actually use a comma as a decimal point. Very confusing. And all the different notations you might see, we have to accept for different countries. Okay, Part 2 says correct to 4 significant figures. Do they mean take Part 1 to 4 significant figures? No, it says write down your answer to Part A correct to 4 significant figures.
0.01563.
Okay, so this is the first significant figure. Second, third, fourth. Then you look to see if you round or not. 0.01563. They're just checking to see if you know how to round and if you know what significant figures are. It is sad that this one got missed a lot. That's why they said at the very first that rounding was the biggest one of the biggest problems. Part 3 has this weird form. I don't know. What does that mean? Scientific notation. So how do I take the answer from Part A and write it in scientific notation?
1.5 times 10.
Would I just leave it as 1.5?
No.
I would actually go 1.565.
Times 10 to the negative.
2. Negative 2.
Yeah.
Negative 2, because the decimal point had to go 2 backwards. They give 1 point for the first part and 1 point for the exponent. Do you kind of have a feel for how to read the mark schemes a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. So the next problem that was actually requested, is that a number 2? Dash 2? Who wrote in pink? 2. Okay. Alright. This is actually a good one to review. We have a class of 13 math students receiving the following grades in their final exam. Now, if I wanted to, right now, as we're going through these, I could pull up my mark scheme along with it. For these grades, find the mode. What's the mode?
The number that appears the most.
Okay, which one's appearing the most?
3.
That's worth 1 point. Should you have any working?
No.
No. Median.
The number that appears in the middle.
So what should I do for my working on that one?
Put them in order.
So I have a 2.
4.
And I would, if I were writing these down, just to give you test-taking strategies, I wrote down the 2, so I'm going to mark it out. How many 3s am I going to write down?
4.
2, 3. 4 3s. Let's see, there's a 4 and another 4. And then I have a 5 and a 5. Oh, and another 5. And then a 6 and a 7 and a 7, right? Yes? We have 13 numbers. So, let's see. Here's 6 and 6. So which one's in the middle?
4.
4. So, if you wrote down the wrong number, but had shown this, you would at least get 1 point. I always notice if they're giving me 1 point or more. More means you should show work. Upper quartile. Oh gosh, I don't know what that means. Top 25%. So this one was the very middle. So we need halfway to here. What's halfway from here to the end?
Including 4?
Mm-mm.
Not including
It's
4?
going to be right in here.
Yes.
What do you think about it?
This is going to be my quartile 3. Where would my quartile 1 be? Halfway in this side, so it would be right there. So quartile 3 would be what number? If it's halfway between 5 and 6.
5.5.
5.5. And quartile 1 would be 3. If you are unsure on your quartiles, could you put it in your calculator and do the one variable stat? It'll give you your mean, median, it gives you all your 5-number summary, gives you all that stuff. But these should be ones that we could actually do without even the calculator. What's interquartile range? Q3 minus Q1. That's finding D. So I would show that I took 5.5 minus 3. Because what if I got the wrong number here? Could I use the wrong number here and get points? Yes. You want to show everything you can so that you get partial credit. Gain as many points as we can. Number 4. Okay. Number 4 is the chi-squared one. On this one, they said that most people actually could get A. A lot of people got A, B, and C. Fewer people got all the way to D. So it says a study was carried out to determine whether the country chosen by students for university studies was influenced by a person's gender. We had a random sample. Here's the results. They give you the critical value. That's important when you make your decision on a chi-square test. Part A is state the null hypothesis. Anyone? They're independent. Null hypothesis is always that the two things are independent. So what two things are being compared? Yep. And whichever order you want to say it in, country chosen, I can't say that. Chosen and gender are independent. They will not accept not correlated. When does correlation come into play?
Cuss word.
Cuss word?
He said chi-squared.
No, this is chi-squared. Scatter plots, linear regressions is correlation. Chi-squared tests for independence. If you don't say the word independent, you don't get that point. Part B says to write down the number of degrees of freedom. That means they don't care if they see any work or not. So calculator. How do I put this in the calculator so that I can do a chi-square test?
It's like number of columns minus number of rows, right?
Well, that's but the calculator will do it for us. Matrix. Put the data in a matrix. So we need to enter the matrix. Okay, so where do we find matrix at?
Second x to the negative 1.
Okay, second x to the negative 1. And you want to edit. Whoops, I didn't edit. I need to edit. And you're going to enter in your data into there. And I want everybody to kind of play along here. Especially if you don't remember how to do a chi-square test. There will be one at least on paper 1 and usually one on paper 2. I'm just happy they give you the critical value now. You used to have to read a chart that was ugly and messy, and they actually give you your critical value. Once you have it in the matrix, I'm going to quit, back out of it. And this is a chi-squared test. Where should I go next? Do you may remember? It's something with statistics, right? So go to Stat, Now, if you're not sure, could you go to calculate and look for it? I don't see chi-squared. I'll try test.
The funny x squared.
Oh, it's under test. Because it's a chi-squared test. Did we put our observed data in A?
Yes.
It will calculate the expected values for you. You don't even have to do those. You just go down to calculate, and it gives you a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm just writing my display so we can talk about each thing. Whoops, 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 4, 6, 7. So here's the full display. Write down the number of degrees of freedom. Which one do you think means degrees of freedom?
DF.
DF. Write it down. So in my answer spot, I put a 2. Write down the chi-squared statistic. Which one's the chi-squared statistic?
The one that says chi-squared.
The one that says chi-squared. Now you could write the entire thing. Or what would be 3 significant figures? 9.17. They're fine with 9.17 or the entire thing.
6, 9, 8, 8, 1, 5, 3.
They even say they'll accept 9.169. Is that more than enough? Yeah. Next part. Write down the associated p-value. Oh, they gave that to us as well. 3 significant figures would be 1, 0, 2. If that's all you did on this test, on this question, you would have gotten 4 points.
Yeah.
That's over half the points in the problem. If you didn't remember how to do the next part, you could just move on, right?
Yeah.
And then come back to this later. Part D says, state with a reason whether the null hypothesis will be accepted.
We can reject them all.
You say no?
I think so, because isn't it the closer that, I thought it was like the closer the x squared or the chi-squared value is to the critical value.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's the
The
R.
hypothesis is not.
Alright. I'm happy this part got brought up. If you got 0, that means that there is no, nothing going on whatsoever. They are the most independent they can be. The higher your chi-squared value is, the more there's a chance that there's something, they're not independent. Something's going on. Your critical value is your cutoff. Once you surpass it, you say they're not independent. Have we surpassed our critical value?
No.
No. So if you're under the critical value,
You accept it.
we accept the null. So that part D was the most missed one out of that question. So we accept the null hypothesis. I can't spell hypothesis. And what kind of reason could I give?
R chi-squared is less than our critical value.
You could write that in words, or I could say 9.17 is less than 9.210.
Does it have to fit in the box? Or can it, stick out of the box a little bit?
Okay, and that's a good question. We want to try to have everything in the answer boxes, because nowadays these are scanned. And if you write too far out, notice there's a little kind of a mark here. That's about where the boundary of the page is. What happens to these exams is they get scanned in, and some software or some person who has a lucky job splits them up. And then one grader might get all the number ones. Somebody else gets all the you're grading the same problem over and over and over. I'm going to have a lot of fun this summer. So, yeah, I found out I have 5 FedEx packages waiting for me at the house of IAs to grade. All right.
Now, is that just 5 IAs, or is that like 5 IAs?
5 schools.
Wait, when do you have to grade?
You're really popular, man.
No, I've got to sign. I have to grade 80 before, I think it's middle of May.
So how do you hear
That's not a lot of writing. When I grade a paper, all I'm doing is reading through and figuring out how many points they get. And then I make comments. It's not that much writing. Okay, number 5 is the next one. All right. Number 5. Number 5, focus. So on number 5, many candidates lost at least 1 mark for giving too many figures after the decimal point, or for truncating rather than rounding. What does it mean to truncate rather than round? You just cut it off. You will lose points for that.
Yeah.
This says specifically it needs 2 decimal places. This is money. Money has 2 decimal places. Now, we want to make sure that we use the right exchange rates in the right order. I like to set mine up kind of as fractions, kind of like that chemistry conversion stuff.
Stoichiometry, that kind of thing? Or...
So, we've got a kid, I don't know how to pronounce his name, who got a scholarship of $5,000 US to study in Singapore. He's traveling from South Africa, and he's going to need to change his money. Well, first he needs to change his money for his airfare.
Yes.
If he's in South Africa, he needs to take that dollars and turn it into rand, right? How many dollars is that flight going to cost him?
Oh, yeah, this is just unit work.
So we can convert the 6,600 rand to US dollars.
Correct. If we're trying to find the airfare in not ZAR, but in US dollars, you're going to start with that airfare. So in my working, I would start with the 6,600 ZAR. Yeah, because we're taking, each US dollar is worth 8.2421 ZAR. I like to do it as fractions like this and leave the units because it kind of helps me know that ZARs would cancel out.
Yeah.
And my new answer would have dollars. So if I took the 6,600 divided by 8.2421, now remember, they said the reason most people miss this problem is they couldn't round. What should this be rounded to?
800.77.
Right. Not 800.76, you would not get this one right. Because it says this one has to go to 2 decimal places. If you wrote your whole calculator screen on this one, you would be wrong.
Where does it say it has to be 2 decimal places?
At the very top. In this question,
yeah.
give all answers correct to 2 decimal places. It's involved. I'd circle that, underline it, whenever you see one of those.
Are all currency questions?
Currency, you'll see it mainly in 2 decimal places. So 877 US dollars. I would also always put your units. Now, would it be okay to do the dollar sign? Yeah. But since this test is taken by all different countries, not every country is going to put the dollar sign. They're just going to write US dollars. So on his arrival in Singapore? Singapore?
Yeah.
That's the country version. He takes $3,000 from that $5,000 he got, and he wants to change them to Singapore dollars so he can pay for school. Makes sense. There is a 2.8% commission. What does that mean?
2.8%.
The bank is going to take 2.8%, and they say they're going to calculate it in U.S. dollars. Notice that this answer has got to be in U.S. dollars. So if he starts with $3,000 U.S. dollars, how do I find the commission that he has to pay?
Well, you're going to want to take 2.8% of that 3,000.
Yeah, 2.8% of 3,000.
Is 840.
So 3,000 times what? You could do .028, or if you have trouble with percents, you can do 2.8 divided by 100. 2.8% per 100. And it should end up being $84.00.
Yes. Now, if it's just 84, do we have to do it 84.00?
I personally would,
Okay.
but it says on that they would accept 84.
Okay.
I just wouldn't want to risk it if I had a grader that wanted to be really nitpicky, because you never know who your graders are. So that's another thing that I was reminded in some sessions that I had in January. You never know who your grader is. Some of the graders are retired teachers. Please don't write super, super tiny, and please try to write neatly. If they can't read your writing, can they see if you get the right answer or not?
No, they cannot.
I'm used to y'all's writing. Some other people will not be. So try to make it clear what you're doing. Okay. Now, so he pays that commission, and then we want to find out how much of that Singapore dollars he's going to have. So, is he still using $3,000 to convert? Oh yeah, he spent that $84 paying the bank. Okay, minus 84 is 2916. That's what he has to convert. And that's in what?
That's in USD.
That was U.S. dollars, because he started with 3,000 U.S. dollars. He had to give the bank 84 U.S. dollars. So this is the amount that he's converting. Each of those U.S. dollars will give him 1.29903 Singapore's dollars. So which one's going to go in the numerator?
US dollars.
No,
And then
remember,
It's got to cancel.
where you're converting this one.
US dollars is on the bottom.
It's on the bottom numerator.
Singapore.
Singapore goes in the numerator.
And use the version of the thing you're converting to goes like that.
And if you think about it logically, if each dollar is worth that much, then you would take your dollars times that much, right? So when you multiply that together, what do we get?
3,787.97.
Okay. And that's no longer in dollars, that's in Singapore dollars.
Yeah.
We okay with the conversions?
Yeah.
Okay, 6 was marked a lot, and I'm really happy this one came up, because I remember grading the tests on this section, and I'm really happy this question popped up. A lot of people had trouble with the cumulative frequencies. So I want to maybe reword it differently than I did before. When you have a cumulative frequency graph, this graph is showing the speed of 80 cars. When you read a cumulative frequency graph, the way I want you to think is they took the speed of 80 cars. They took those speeds and put them in order. Slowest car to the fastest car. The first car is going to have the slowest speed. The 80th car is going to have the quickest speed. So they put it in order from the slowest to the biggest. So if I looked at this graph, that slowest car, how fast was he going?
He wasn't moving.
No, the first car. Number 1 starts the cars.
Oh, right.
So number 1 car. He's going about 19 kilometers per hour. How many cars have a speed of less than or equal to 50 kilometers? Well, I have to find 50. Oh, 50 matches the 10th car. That 10th car is going 50 kilometers per hour. Yes?
Yeah.
The 10th car, if I look at his speed on the graph, he's going 50 kilometers per hour. And if I have them numbered, the first car is the slowest. And now we're up to the 50 kilometers. How many cars have a speed of less than or equal to 50? 10. We have 10 cars between 0 and 50 kilometers. Does that make a little bit of sense there? The 15th car, we'd mark over and see his speed. So the next one is filling in a frequency table. Frequency. How many cars are in each group? How many cars are going between 0 and 50?
10.
We just did that. How many cars are going between 50 and 70?
19.
So I have to come back over. Oh, what? Let's
But it's
see.
not including the 10th car.
But it's including that, so it's 11. So that's we still say 30 minus 10.
20. Yeah.
It's 20.
But you're not including the...
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oops. 10, 15, 20. This group,
Yeah, but it's not, but it said not including 50, so it'd be 19, right?
I'm not including the car at 50. So if I count, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Oh, yeah.
10, 15, 20. It is 20 in that group.
Yeah.
Now the next one they give you, and there's a reason they give it to you. It says there's 34 in the next group. They want to make sure you don't make a mistake on the graph. Y'all giggling so much over there and I'm recording. So 80. If I go up from 80 kilometers, and yes, I will bring y'all rulers. It says that between 70 and 80, there's 34. And I can't tell where my graph is ending. Is it ending there at the 3 mark or at the 4 mark?
Well, we know how many cars
34.
are being tested, and they give us everything that we need to know, so we can just add it all up and then...
Yeah, but I'm saying, since they said there was 34 in that group, and this ended on line, I would assume that's 34 up,
Yeah.
64. 34 cars are in that group. And they give that to us. So I know I've left off with car number 64. This is car number 64. Where does the next group end?
At 90?
90. So the car that's going 90 kilometers per hour is the 76th car. Whoops, sorry. 76th car. So how many cars are there between the 76th car, that's hard to say, and the 64th car?
12.
12. And the last group is 4. Let me give that to you. On my chart, they said parts A and B were generally well done, although some candidates had an incorrect table and should have been in a position to check their data from the information given. You should have been able to add them up and what they equal.
Teachers at this time, please release students that are participating in the dodgeball tournament. Those that are participating.
Anybody in dodgeball?
May go to Gym 1 now.
Okay. Alright. So if you added all these up, how many cars should you have?
80.
80. Could you check your work?
Yeah.
Yes. Now, a lot of candidates had problems on the rest of it. Mid-interval value of 50 to 70. 60. Mid-interval. What's the middle of 50 to 70? 60. A lot of people mess that up. It's basically saying what's the average of that interval. The reason we need to figure that out is for Part D. It says that, let's see, common error was they messed up on Part C. A lot missed Part D. Okay. I want to go over how we would do Part D. Hi. No.
She's on. I know. Oh, Miss Christie, she's in the art room.
Well, she didn't come to class. Okay. All right.
She should be kept for the whole day because all of the art IA stuff is Tuesday.
All right. So, if we're going to put this in the calculator, and we have a group, all right, so all these cars, 10 cars, are going between 0 and 50. Now, could I technically enter in every speed that's marked here? I'm not doing that. Okay. I know that 10 cars are going somewhere between 0 and 50.
Yes.
So should I guess they're all going 48?
No.
What's a good estimate for between 0 and 50? 25. The average. So I'm going to find the average of each of those speeds. What's the average for 50 to 70?
60, right?
Mm-hmm. What's the average for 70 to 80?
75.
Average for 80 to 90?
85.
The average for 90 to 100.
95.
What this means is 4 cars are going about 95.
Yeah.
12 cars are going about 85. That's about right. 34 cars are going about 75. In your calculator. Now you could write 25 10 times, 60 20 times. Would you want to really type all that in?
Oh my goodness.
Okay, so what we can do is L1 and L2. That's under our stat feature. In L1, we can put our average speed. And then I'm going to put the frequency in L2. Now, L2 is just counting how many of those we had. It's not a different variable. There is only one variable being looked at in this problem. That's this one. One variable. This is just counting how many of them we have. So if I list my average speeds, and I'm just doing it on paper here so that you know what to put in the calculator. You don't actually have to show this on your test. It says to use your calculator to do this. They don't expect you to, like, find the mean by hand and find the standard deviation. They don't want you to do that. This is a time test. Go to Stat, Edit, and you fill in your L1 and L2. So we put the averages in, because we don't want to list out every single seed. And we list the count that's in each of those groups.
Go back to stat, right?
Are we still entering? Those who are playing along? Okay, once I'm playing along, how do I want to find out the mean and the standard deviation? Where do I go to find out that information? Stat? Yes. This is one variable. This column is just frequencies. That's not a different variable.
Yeah.
So you're going to go to Stat, Calculate,
Oh, one variable stat.
and go to one variable stats. Now the difference here is, when you start off with your calculator, it's only going to have, whoops, I went to the wrong button. It's going to pop up like this. Is my list of data in L1?
No, yes.
Yes. Your calculator asks for a frequency list. Do we have one?
Yes.
Yes. If you don't put anything in here, then it's just finding the average of those 5 numbers. You have to have your frequency list in there. Do you see where to pull up L2? So look on the calculator and see if you can find L2.
Is it the list?
It's in blue
2.
above 2. So that would be second 2. And that gives us all of our information. I need to write down the mean and the standard deviation. So we need to remember some symbols here. Which one means
Pi
mean?
over x is the mean, right?
Yep.
Yep.
X bar is the mean. Standard deviation, which one do we use? The what? Oh, it's the circle thing? Yeah, lowercase sigma, yeah. It's the little sigma. Now, I could write out the whole thing, but what's a good answer? 18 point?
18 points.
No. That's a good point. No. They don't, they're not picky on the units on that one. It's more of like the geometry ones.
Where would the third point come from?
What's that point?
It gives you, it says there are 3 points for part B, or part D, sorry.
Let's see. You know, that's really a good point, because there's not really any working to show. They're giving 2 points for the first answer? But
Oh, do they do want the unit for the first part of the answer?
no, that just, the parentheses means that we're okay, it doesn't have to be there.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So this one, the reason it's 2 points is if they do get it wrong, but you see that they actually tried to find the mean, like they actually showed that they were adding up all the things by hand, you can give them a point for method. That's a good point. That's a good question, because it shouldn't have been 3 points if I had written it. Number 10. So number 10 is a calculus problem.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. A was answered correctly. And I love how they word this. I'll show you. Part A on number 10 was invariably answered correctly. And for confident candidates, Part B was also done well. Who talks like that? And then it goes on to what the mistakes were. But I love the last part. Many candidates could write down an equation, but giving the answer in the correct form proved too much for the majority of candidates. Really?
It's so pretentious.
It proved too much. And actually, they probably took that into consideration when they decided the 7s. If the majority of students, only like a couple of them got that part, you know, they may have taken that into consideration. And I'll also tell you that very few students really do get to 13, 14, and 15 in the test. That's why the numbers for those are usually
How
lower.
long do we have for this test?
Hour and a half for 15 problems.
Okay.
Okay, so 10. We're given that f of x, and it's so blurry, f of x equals x to the 4th. Part A says write down f prime. Does anybody remember how to find f prime?
Yes. You multiply the
What?
coefficient by the exponent, subtract the exponent by 1.
Okay. The exponent comes down. And then we subtract 1.
I don't remember.
It's okay. Oh, yeah. They said a lot of candidates got that part right and maybe just stopped.
I probably would have.
Part B sounds scarier than it is. Gradient of the tangent.
The slope.
The slope. There was some kind of thing that helped us find the slope of tangent
You
line.
know, it was the prime of the thing.
Yeah, this is also called the gradient function.
Yeah.
It finds the slope. That's its job. So if I know the gradient function,
You also know the gradient.
I need to be able to plug into it. What does it need to know?
The gradient.
And what does it take? Like, what's its input? F prime of x. You need to know the x value. What's the x value of that point? 2. Point 216.
Oh, 2, okay.
Yeah, 20.
Be careful here. A lot of people don't know how to put this in the calculator. They do 4 times 2 and then cube it.
Oh.
Parentheses exponent.
So 2 cubed is
2 cubed is 8. Times 4 is
36.
32. You got 3 points on this problem. This is 1 point. This is method point for plugging in and A1 for answer.
Can you not use the calculator?
You could.
But it still counts even though it's down, fine.
Remember on this one, if you write down the right answer, they just keep going. So if you write down the right answer, they're not going to go look for your work. It's only if you get it wrong. Now part C, it says that a lot of people did not notice the word normal,
That's just perpendicular.
or they didn't know what it meant. So some teachers, it's not really stressed in a lot of the textbooks. We spent some time on it. Normal means perpendicular. So normal is perpendicular to the tangent. In other words, the tangent line is the one that kind of sits along here. This one goes straight through. Alright, the first point in this 3-point problem is to write down the slope of the normal line. And it said most people missed it.
-1/32.
Yep. Some people accidentally or didn't pay attention and wrote down 32. So what happens then,
The AX plus BY plus C equals 0.
so it was M1 for the gradient being seen. You get another point for plugging in your point into some kind of equation to be able to find the equation of the line. So we have slope. Do we know the point it's going through?
Yes, we do.
216. How do we write the equation of a line?
Well, you can do it more than one way.
Mm-hmm.
The way they want us to do it is the AX BY plus D.
Yeah, but we have to do we have to find everything to get there.
So we can do it in slope-intercept format.
Yep. Y equals mx plus d. You get 1 point for the slope. You'll get another point for plugging in this point and finding your y-intercept. Most candidates could at least get to here. Now, since this is a fraction and it's going to be an ugly one, it's actually easier to leave your answers in fractions. Does anybody know how, once I multiply -1/32 times 2, how to get that answer back into a fraction so it's easier to work
You can
with?
do math, enter.
Math, enter, enter. And we want to solve for b, because what is b?
Intercept.
Y-intercept. So I need to, what? Okay, so 16 plus 1/16.
Something rather dramatically at infinity or all real numbers.
Well, it was negative on this side, but I'm trying to solve for b, so I had to add it. And I'm going to put it back into a fraction because it's going to be a lot easier. They said the people who actually got the slope right, a lot of them could get to this. Very, very, very few candidates could write it in the form they wanted. They wanted it in AX plus BY plus D equals 0, where all the numbers are integers. Do we have integers?
No.
What kind of numbers are these? Ooh, good question. What kind of numbers are these?
The one with a Q.
Okay, the Q. They're rational numbers. These are not integers.
Yeah. So, integers are decimals, I have Q.
What do you do? Okay, so let's break this down a little bit. First, I'm going to get everything on one side because it looks like they have the x's, y's, and the number equal to 0. I'm going to move everything to one side. So if I move this to the other side, it's going to become positive,
Yeah.
and then that fraction's going to become negative. Now notice, I'm doing all of this to get 1 point. Would you really spend time on this if you're unsure how to do it?
No.
No.
No, time.
This is a time test. I would have done A, B, and part of C, and then gone, oh crap, I'll come back to it. It's an ugly fraction.
Give me one of the points.
Yeah, I'll just come back later, and I would just keep going and go, oh, I know how to do that. Ooh, I know, you know. Do the ones you know. Get the points you can. This one's ugly. This was trying to decide who's a 6 and who's a 7.
Yeah.
To get rid of the fractions, I'm going to start with the first one. 1/32. What could I multiply by that would get rid of 1 divided by 32?
Not wider than 32.
So I'm going to multiply this, but I have to multiply both sides of the equation because that's the rule of algebra. So I'm going to distribute 32. 32 times 1 over 32 is 1, x. 32 times y, and I don't know this one. I'm going to use my calculator. 32 times negative 257 over 16 gives me negative 514. Oh, all the fractions are gone.
Alright, cool, we're done.
Remember, writing it in that form is just one of the points, and it always has been. If that part confuses, get the rest of the points. Are we, yes? We got, okay. So, I think that may have helped. Do you kind of get how to read the mark schemes now? So, when you work on the problems, I want you to go back and look at the mark schemes to see how many points you would have gotten. See if you can check them. I had sent out an email about the November 2015 test. I sent you a link to a Google folder that has the 2015 test and their mark scheme for November. Alright. I got those too late to get them copied in time for the exam. So, what we're going to be doing, just to remind y'all, we went through paper 1 today. Don't have time to do much else, unless we had one more we wanted to look at. Paper 2 we're going to look at on Tuesday. So come with questions. Circle the ones you need to see. Remember, paper 2 is going to take a while. It's only 6 problems. 6 problems in an hour and a half. I really want to make sure we spend time on paper 2 because a lot of people struggle with paper 2. So I want to make sure we do that. And then the plan is we're going to be kind of doing a little bit of practice testing. You'll be taking the 2015 test and not helping each other. We got to get ready for that.
Right.
You don't work together in the ID test, or you do not get the ID grade, and you get kicked out, and you don't get an ID diploma, and you have to pay back to school, and then you don't get credit for this course, and it's ugly, ugly, ugly. Don't look on each other or anything. I haven't minded us doing it in class this year because I've heard the conversations, and y'all are actually learning from each other, which is great. But ID will not allow it.
Yeah.
So we're going to spend one day, since these are hour-and-a-half tests, we'll spend one day doing the 2015 May paper 1. Next class period, we'll go over it, so you know which ones you missed. Then we're going to do the paper 2. Then we're going to go over it. We'll be done by the 28th, 29th, whatever, so that those of you who are taking tests starting May 2nd, you can just keep working on the reviews and stuff. We won't be doing anything major in class. Yeah. Well, if you do real low and early. No, I'm not looking at them to take the grade. More is just that practice of picking which problems do I want to work. Using your formula chart. Start looking at your formula chart if you really haven't, and thinking, oh, which problem does this go with on the test? Remember, you're going to pick and choose your evils. Which ones do you know you can do? Okay. And this probably was the worst video I ever recorded.